everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Jonesin 4 Show. Today, we are really lucky to have an amazing guest, Ted McDonald, joining us today. Ted is an amazing athlete. He is a yoga instructor. I believe he's been teaching yoga for over 20 years. He's been an endurance athlete since college, if I remember correctly. And he is a coach. He helps people go after their goals. He coached me to help me go after my goal of running and participating in a half Ironman and crush that. So, Ted, welcome to the Jonesin 4 Show.
Thank you very much. Happy to be here, my friend.
So, Yes, I did this half Ironman. It was an incredible event, and I loved doing it. But that mindset to do that was tricky for me because I've done, hour-long workouts before, and I've done 5Ks, 10Ks, short ones. But getting to that mindset of pushing yourself for 6 hours, 12 hours, because you've done a full Ironman, is that correct?
Yeah, and that was not the longest race I've ever done, time-wise.
Okay, so let's talk about that real quick. What got you into racing and sports and that back in the day, and how did you get involved with endurance sports? Because I don't think a kid wakes up and go, I want to run a 100-mile race or whatever it is.
Yeah, I didn't wake up as a kid thinking that, although I wake up every day now thinking, how can I schedule my training to go do 100 miles?
Nice.
As I approach my 50th birthday. So started off as an athlete, always an athlete growing up as a kid, playing baseball and football. And I grew up on Long Island and played lacrosse all the time. So all of the sports I was running to some degree,
Nice.
But then gave it up. And years ago when I started practicing yoga on a regular basis, I just thought, oh, this is it. This is all I ever really want to do. And I thought that for almost 3 years. And I did yoga 3, 4, 5 days a week. And
Wow.
When I finally got to the point where I could hold Warrior 2 for hours, it felt like, and obviously not, but for a long time, I thought, I think I want this cardio thing back in my life. And I started running, and I ran a couple miles, and I was sore for 4 days.
Oh, man.
After 2 miles. Now, granted, it was a little up and a little down, but I should not have been sore for 4 days. I thought, this is ridiculous. But I realized that if you don't use it, you lose it, right?
Right, totally.
It's just crazy. So the next week I went out again. I thought, I don't want to become some, crazy runner running every day. I just want a little bit of cardio. So I ran again, and I was sore for 3 days. And I thought, oh wow, muscle memory, right? my body's remembering. And the next week I happened to be at my friend's office, and he goes, hey man, we're doing this marathon. And I said, no, dudes, I'm a yogi now. I don't do those things. That's bad. So he said, look, this is the perfect weekend. Just come out. We're doing this 3 minute of running, 1 minute of walking, which is the fartlek technique, right? And so I thought anybody could run for 3 minutes and walk a minute. You always get a rest, right?
Right.
So I said, I'll tell you what, I'll come out, I'll run your 10 miles. And if I don't feel like I'm going to hurt myself, I'll do the marathon. Cut to 6 weeks later, we're on our way down to San Diego. I don't know if it was 5 or 6 weeks later. And we're on our way to San Diego and doing the rock and roll marathon. And this is before the rock and roll marathon was a thing. This was the year 2000, 20 years ago now. And I just fell in love. I fell in love with the energy and the people and the vibe. And when it totally shifted my whole mentality. And when I came around mile 25 in pain, I started weeping, and I thought, I had my glasses on, and I was crying, and I'm like, what is going on with these emotions? Where are they coming from? But I was such a raw nerve for putting 4 hours and 20 minutes. I think I wound up finishing in 4.5 hours or something. So it was not fast by any means, but I knew at mile 25 that I could stop and walk, and I was going to finish a marathon. And that was never in my sphere of consciousness 6 weeks prior to that.
Right.
So I didn't walk. I did run that last mile, and I crossed the finish line, and I thought, wow, if I can do this, what else is there that I can do, right? I mean, what else is there that I don't know about that can give me this incredible euphoria that I didn't even know existed, right?
Right.
And then during training, I was training with this group of people, and I decided to do a triathlon. So I later got into triathlon, and that was the Malibu Triathlon.
Okay.
And it was a sprint distance triathlon, but the organizer, Michael Epstein, was putting on these adventure races. And adventure races are essentially triathlons, but trails and kayaking versus swimming, but you're mountain biking and trail running. They just refer to it as trekking because you're moving forward on foot. And typically there is navigation involved. So you have a map and a compass. You're not allowed to have your trusty little GPS. That's illegal in those races back in the day. This is before everyone had it on their phone and their watch. Right. But anyway, so I thought to myself, this is unbelievable. So I recruited, you do it on teams. So I recruited a couple of friends, and we did this. At the time, it was the High Tech Adventure Racing Series. And there were 2 to 5 hour races. Those were the sprint races, and they consisted of 1 to 3 miles of kayaking on a lake or in the ocean, and then 10 to 15 miles of mountain biking. You never knew what the course was going to be until you got there. So you couldn't research the course. You could research the area, but we would sit with a map and we'd look at the topography of the area and say, well, they could send us over here, and they could send us over there, or they could send us back there, or we might be running over here, but mountain biking over there. And you just had to be prepared for it all. That's because great. Then, yeah, it was awesome. And then they would throw in these random agility tests, climbing a wall that was covered. So this was way before the Tough Mudder and the Spartan races, right? Those exist because of these things, right? So this was way back in the day, like I say, 20 years ago. And after I did that sprint race, I just thought, this is it, man. This is all I want to do. They had 24-hour races.
Oh my god!
And they were 12 to 24 hours, and I thought, this is awesome. You just keep going and going and going.
Right.
And there was something back in the day that some people may have heard about called the Eco Challenge. That was kind of the big. There's a race in France called the Raid Gaulois, and that was the big original one. And this kind of event, this adventure racing event, started back in New Zealand. In fact, the Kiwis. And it's funny because I used to race against some professional Kiwis, and the guy's like, it's so weird that we race for money right now because we used to do this for fun. This was our entertainment.
That's hilarious.
Yeah. But anyway, so I just fell in love with pushing myself and seeing what my body could do beyond what my mind thought it could do.
Right.
And it really was fascinating. And now I'm 20 years from those first races, and I continually search for events where I think, I don't know if I can do it. And then I train for it, and then I like to perform, at least medium well. I like to, at least if I can get into the top 50%, I feel like I have I have the ability, right? I have all my arms and my legs. I can see. I have my brain, so I can utilize what God gave me in this body, right?
Right.
I feel like may as well use it to its potential, and I love pushing myself. So that's kind of the beginning, and there's more to it. But since I've done Ironman and the Leadville 100 mountain bike race, which is and I'm looking now forward to finally a 50 miler and then a 100 miler, and the big goal is UTMB, which is the World Series of Ultra Running, which is in Chamonix, but we can talk about that later.
Wow. So, I mean, you have these big goals on the horizon for you of things you want to achieve and push your body to and get that euphoric state again at the end. That's incredible.
Yeah. And then you learn about the journey, right? So it's not just that euphoric state of crossing the finish line. It's the fact that I get to go be in nature and spend hours and hours and hours and hours. And I always, not always, but I always, try to look up and take it in, and, take in the trees and take in the greenery and take in the blue sky. And then my last race was just a month and a half ago. It was just a 30K trail run, and it was wet and slightly muddy, and every single race is different.
Right.
So So it's important, part of the endurance mindset is taking things as they come. It's very much like life, right? You can think you can control it, and you can think you have control, and then all of a sudden life throws you a little slap in the face, right?
Oh, and that happens everywhere in life with it. And you're on your journey, you're set forth, you got your plan, you got your roadmap, and you're going that way. But then life throws a curveball your way, right? Puts up a stop sign, a roadblock, and then you have to make that detour. And it's learning to enjoy that journey. Well, it can get frustrating at that time, but realizing that no, you're growing and you're getting better because of it.
That's absolutely right. That's absolutely correct. I mean, and that's the thing. It's funny because I don't know if you've heard the saying, people are like tea bags. You only know what they're like until you put them in hot water.
I have not heard that, but I like it though. That's very true.
Right? It's like everybody's on their best behavior until they get pushed up against the wall.
Mm-hmm.
And then either they react and start freaking out, or they handle it with some grace, right?
Exactly. And the hope is that we can handle it with grace, or at least well enough grace that we can learn from it and grow, and hopefully not, blow over the rest of the buildings.
That's right. That's right. Yes, exactly.
Well, and just go back for a quick second. I love what you said when you were talking about like during the race, is that you try to at least like look around and enjoy nature, look at the blue skies, the trees. And I remember, and just learning about yourself, I remember when you were training me for the half Ironman, that I was doing the same thing. Like I was out there training for, 3-4 hours or more than that at times. And I intentionally tried to take time on, instead of like thinking, okay, I got to keep running and keep pushing hard and doing that. I was like, no, I get to take a little time. I'm still running, I'm still biking, I'm still out there pushing myself, but I get to look up and be like, no, look, see, I live in Wisconsin, he's in California. So I look around and I look at all the farm fields around and like, oh, how beautiful this small, tiny hill is compared to his mountains. But like, I look around and I see how beautiful the sky is and just the nature we have around, and how lucky and blessed we are to have that stuff around, but also what my body's able to do and push myself. And then with that, you learn so much about yourself. Over those 3-4 months that you were helping me train for the half Ironman, I learned so much about myself. Okay, what kind of food do I need to take here? How does my body respond here? I mean, I never thought I would feel lightheaded and dizzy after certain things that I realized I did, and how to solve that issue. So it's a journey, like we said, and it's really cool to learn about yourself and keep exploring and keep pushing yourself so that you can keep growing as life goes on.
Yeah, and I think just regarding the longer workouts, and it's one thing, most people, they go to a class and it's an hour or it's 45 minutes, or Soul Cycle, right, is 45 minutes, or they do a P90X workout or whatever, it's an hour, and that's fantastic, and that's fantastic. I always say, 1 to 2, 2.5, even 3 hours, like pretty much anybody can do.
Right.
The people who are used to doing, we talked about this in the beginning, and when we started working together, is it's one thing to do. You had only really done 1 hour, 1 hour, right? So, sorry, still there? I just had a call.
Good.
But, and I always say, you can survive up to 3 hours, right? So right. 1 to 2, 2.5, even 3, you can probably suffer through, if you've never really done anything. But once you start getting into the 4-hour range and the 5-hour range and the 6-hour range, it's a whole different thing, because you've officially depleted everything that you had in your system as far as fuel. So you have to understand fueling and mindset, which is, one of the main topics we're talking about, is how are you going to feel and act and and be during hour 5.5 when it's hot outside and there's no shade and it's 95 and humid, and you got a mile to the next water stop and you got a side cramp, and what's going to happen? I mean, and so all these things that come up, and I think, it's one of the things about principles. You go, or I try to go to a race, and then try to coach my athletes and say, okay, look, all hell could break loose at hour 7 for a full Ironman. It's funny. I have a couple people, Pamela, but also I got a couple others who are doing a full Ironman, and it's time. This client of mine in Vegas. So I said, look, we need to get you to do 6 hours and 7 hours and 8 hours, because guess what? On race day, you're going to be out there for 12 or 13 or 14. And I have another friend and client who he finished 16, I think 16:40 or 16:20. So you have to finish the race in 17 hours. He was out there for 16 hours and 20 minutes or whatever it was.
Wow.
And his run was as long as his bike. So he's got calf issues, and he cramps up a lot, and he's just not the best runner. So I said, bro, what happened to your run? And he goes, dude, I am the iron tortoise. Right? So
that's hilarious.
Yeah, right. But the thing is, he gets, like, he understands that I'm going into this, and this is what I got. And this is like, I have my body, and I can swim, and I can bike, and I can walk the whole way.
Right.
And when you understand that, and you have the goal of getting across that finish line, and there's and he has said, this guy particularly, he's done a bunch of Ironman now, like maybe 4 or 5 of them, and it's dark. It's like there's what they call the pain cave.
Right.
And I had a coach who I worked with when I worked with the BMC racing team, the pro cycling team, and he said, man, you're going to be in the pain cave, and when it feels like there's no escape. It feels like you're not going to finish. It feels like you're getting crushed, or your performance is not going to be the best. And what do you know? What he said to me was, know that this too shall pass, that you will get through it, and that's one of the biggest things is just that you have to trust the process, which is why training is so important.
Right. You don't want to go into something without that training, because that training beforehand really helps you not only hone in the physical things, nutrition and that, but it helps you hone in your mindset so that, you go through that pain cave in your training through different stages. And then once it becomes race day and you're realizing, all hell could break loose and things can go crazy, or even not if things go really well, but there's going to be points when you're struggling and suffering and in that pain cave, but knowing that it all comes to an end, and you will survive, and you will be stronger because of it, is huge.
Absolutely. And so if you can, one of the things I try to teach people is to think about that before you even start the race. So go through the mental experiment or exercise of saying, okay, first of all, I teach everybody to visualize themselves crossing the finish line with a smile. Yep. Right? So we had that discussion. Yes, and that's my main goal. Right, exactly. My main goal as a coach is to get my athletes across the finish line with a smile, healthy and with a smile. And if you can see yourself doing that and visualize and picture that, then turn around and look back at that finish line after you've crossed it and feel what it feels like to understand that you just went a marathon 26.2, or that you just went 140.6, or that you just went 70.3, whatever it is, right. 50, 100, whatever and the truth is, an endurance event can be a 10K for somebody who has never really done anything like that before.
Right. I
mean, that's a long way to go. 6 miles, to walk from where I'm sitting, 6 miles is a long distance. It's not, we're talking about these, these big deal races, and, an endurance event is, in my opinion, is, just something way beyond what you think you're capable of doing.
And that's all, and that mindset of where I was at. So when I first started working out, okay, I was healthy, I worked out, and I did P90X at first, and okay, I could do these hour-long workouts, but then I wasn't a runner, and one of my friends said, hey, you want to do this Ragnar relay? It's a 200-mile relay race, and I'm like, I hate running, but okay, sure. I mean, I'm fit, whatever, I'll do it. And man, I mean, I sucked at running before, right? I was running 1 mile, and my side was cramping, it hurt. And after working out, I was able to get up to 3 miles and feel okay, but slow as a snail. But I'm going, there's no way I could do 5 miles or 6 miles, and or even a half marathon like that. That blew my mind of going, there's no way, like I can't do that. And then over time, I got up to 5 miles and 5 or 6, and that's kind of where I capped off until a couple of years ago when I decided to do my first half marathon. I'm going, okay, I'm going to push myself and prove to myself that I can do this 13 miles. But for me, it was what, an hour 50 minutes, I think. Hour 52 is my first half marathon time. And that was endurance for me because, I mean, I was struggling. I enjoyed it. I did well, but I was dying by the end because, I mean, I pushed myself so much. But for me, that was an endurance to see how far I can endure. And then as time, you learn and you keep growing and getting better, you push yourself more, and you keep seeing where that line is and keep pushing it.
Well, I think that's exactly right. And I think experience, this is one of the places where experience is one of the greatest assets, because like I said, that race I did about a month and a half ago was a 30K trail run, and it wound up being about 3,500 feet of climbing, which in Wisconsin, it doesn't exist.
Yeah, maybe 1 or 2 spots. That's about it.
Right. But just trusting my ability to do it partly comes from the fact that I've been there before.
Right.
I wasn't definitely. I did the same race 3 years prior. Mm-hmm. And I think I was 2 minutes slower this year, but we have our new baby, and there was a lot going on last year with everything else. And so I wasn't nearly in as good a shape as I was 3 years ago, but I trusted the fact that I could do it, and I didn't put too much. That's another thing about the endurance mindset, in my opinion, is sometimes people put way too much pressure on themselves, and they immediately set themselves up for failure. So if they set a goal that's a little bit too high or too fast, and that's another reason why, in the beginning when people are doing a race for the first time, and I always think about this, the first time I ever do a race, I get a guesstimate about my time, but then I completely let it go because I never know. I mean, I don't know what the course is going to be like. I don't know what the weather's going to be like. I don't know, you can get a mechanical on the bike. You can have a cramp. You know what I mean? There's a million different things that can go wrong on race day. And, racing is a lot different than training. And it's funny because a lot of my friends, I'll say, yeah, come on, let's go. We can go, we'll do this race together, and then the gun goes off and I'm gone because when the gun goes off, it's a different ball game. like I thought we were racing together. I said, well, no, of course, yeah, we did the same race, but we're not. I mean, unless we're the same speed, we're not really racing together. Right. But that's it's the experience is a big deal. So what that means for people who decide that they want to go into some endurance events is to give yourself a lot of forgiveness. And don't put too much pressure on yourself. I have one client who did her first triathlon. That was an Olympic distance triathlon. She beat her swim estimate. She beat her bike estimate. And she did not beat her run estimate by 2 minutes. Oh. And all she can talk about is the run.
Oh, that's so sad.
She had a great race. And I mean, now she's kind of gotten over it now. This was 4 months ago. But it was, and the thing is, part of me as a coach, I'm like, forget that. You look what you did and stay focused on the positive of what you actually did. I mean, you did it, right? You swam for a mile in the ocean, and you biked for 25 miles, and you ran 6.2, right? I mean, enjoy that.
Yeah,
and it's hard.
Well, and that's a good thing for life in general, right? I mean, endurance sports, but just life in general. Like you're going through and don't negative things happen. Those things happen in your life that don't go the way you wanted them to or the way you expected them to. But knowing and looking back on, no, it's okay. I survived. I made it. But then also forgiving yourself, like, you know what? Sure, I didn't reach my goal time for it, but that's okay. What did I learn? What did I take away? And have that mindset of next time, maybe we could work on improving that, or just being okay with it and saying, look what I just did. That's incredible.
That's right. That's right. And there's one other thing too that I'll mention that just popped into my head, which is, and again, I just go back to the most recent race I did this a few weeks ago, because racing, and depending on depending on the individual athlete, I race at my threshold, right? So when I train well enough, and I'm well versed enough with my own performance and experience and training that I know when I can push, when I need to ease up, when to conserve. And the truth is, in every race, you want to conserve until the final 5 or 10% of that race. So for a half marathon, you're running as fast as you possibly can while conserving effort and energy for the first 11 miles. And then you just give it all you have for the last 2.1 miles.
Right.
And it's the same thing for 30K. So the 30K wound up being a 33K, which was 20.5 miles, something like that. But I knew it was basically up and then down and then back up a loop and then another down and up a loop and then back down to the finish. And so I knew that depending on what was going to happen during that race, that I was going to be able to really push on that final downhill, because that final downhill was about, I want to say 4 or 5 miles. So the first 16 miles, I'm running as fast as I possibly can and conserving,
right,
and being aware, right? I mean, it's you have this dual focus, right? I'm going as fast as I possibly can, knowing that when the time comes, I'm going to need to give it a little bit more gas.
Right.
And that's a very fine line in racing, because if you give it too much, you're not going to have enough to push at the end.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And don't get me wrong. I would say 99 out of 100 races that I've done, I've, almost collapsed at the end, I've given it everything I had, but that's a strategy, right? I mean, that's basically pushing myself, saving enough for that little extra last, 5%, 7%, 10%, whatever I feel like I can push for, and then giving it everything I possibly have, and then making it across that finish line and just going, oh, I mean, that's where for me I find the pleasure in that, and that's part of the strategy too.
Well, and I'll tell you, for me, I'm the same way, where I want to push myself as much as we can, and really go for it at the end, sprint at the end, so that you not necessarily collapse at the end, but you are bringing as much as you can. So you feel like you've accomplished and you've given everything you've got. And that ties into life, right? And with tying into life, it ties into your self-awareness of everything that you're doing in your life. So of whatever you're living, whether you're actually doing a race or you're working on a project at work or whatever, that you're giving it everything you got, but still making sure and checking in with yourself that, yep, I'm okay. I'm still good until that final push through, for, project at work, a race, or whatever it is. It's having that mindset and being self-aware. That's huge. Now,
Yeah.
I know we're coming up on our time here, for the show. So do you have any, I'd love to get you back on later on. We can talk more about racing and how you combine your yoga and racing and just everything you do. Cause I know you do some strength stuff as well, of how you tie that all in. We'll get you back on later if you like.
100%. We can talk about practical strategies for it.
Perfect. Well, I appreciate you being on here. How can, because you have a couple things. You have your 5-Point Yoga Studio. You have the Team WRX with corporate wellness, and you adventure yoga retreats. Like, how can people find out more about you?
Yeah, so you can go to my personal website, teddymcdonald.com. Find me on social media there at Teddy McDonald, Teddy. That's what they called me when I was a little tiny young buck. But anyway, or yeah, if you're ever in Malibu, 5 Point Yoga is my yoga studio in Malibu. And then the corporate wellness, anyone that runs. So I do kind of an executive health coaching program. In fact, you and I are going to start working together a little bit on that. And we coach companies and employees at companies, and that goes deep. So that's Teamworks, TEAMWRX.US, in fact. But anywhere, I'm easily accessible, that's for sure. So any questions anybody has, I'm always happy to answer questions. Yeah, that's about it.
Awesome. And all the websites will be in the show notes at spencermjones.com. So if you don't remember that, just go to Spencer M. Jones, go under the Jonesin Forest Show and find this episode, and you can get all those links and all that good stuff. So you can work together with us for the corporate wellness if that interests you, or hit him up and go visit in Malibu and work with him and let him coach you for, your triathlons or goals that you want to run, marathons, whatever it is. Let him help you get that state of euphoria at the end and help you feel amazing and get that right mindset. So Ted, I know it's kind of quick here at the end, but I really appreciate you being on the show and sharing your advice with all of us. Thank you so much.
Oh, my pleasure, man. And I'll just say one kind of final thing regarding the endurance mindset.
Yeah.
I think personally that it lends itself to life, right? I mean, whether you're an endurance athlete, which in my mind means, like I said, either, you're doing something that's beyond what you think you can do, and you're trying to, create a goal that's longer than you think you can go, right? But it lends itself to life. And I think that if we're lucky enough to live a long period of time and we don't suddenly have an accident and die, that's what it is essentially, right? It's really enjoying the process and enjoying the journey, and relishing in all the moments that we possibly can. So thanks for having me on.
Thank you for sharing your wisdom, folks. And if you like the show, make sure that you give us a like or a comment, feedback on iTunes, Google Play, YouTube, wherever you're watching this, and share it out with your friends. Help other people with this endurance mindset so that we can help improve the world around us. Thanks for joining us, Ed. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. Have a great day.
Thanks.
Hey, everyone. Sorry to cut in real quick, but I have something that I really want to share with you that I think will really help you out. If you struggle with having balance in your life, whether it's chasing your passions and balancing that with family and work, and if you're anxious all the time, right? If that sounds like you, I have something that can help you out. I created this workbook, this worksheet really, that helps you figure out that balance in your life so that you can have the calmness, the peacefulness, right, of having a balanced life by being able to do all the things you want to do by spending time with your family, getting your work done, and chasing your passions, have it all done. So if that interests you, if you are wanting to balance your life, be sure to check out my website, spencermjones.com, and click on Finding Your Balance. And just all you have to do is put in your email and I will send it to you right then. And you can go through this worksheet and find that balance you desire in your life. All right, folks, enough of this talking. Go get your balance and have a great day.